hey, what in the hell is happening with you? How are you? You got a good face. Go to Face Village and get a new one if you need it. Hey, what's happening? Hey, how you doing? It's Nick Digilio. That's me. And hey, thank you for checking out my YouTube channel and Patreon. That's where I also do a bunch of videos, exclusive videos, and all that kind of stuff. Everything that I do for free. The videos, the movie reviews, the stories that I tell, all that kind of stuff, and my podcast. It's all free, so you should donate a little dough. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Go there right now, pick a tier, make a donation, a little monthly donation, $3 a month. What's that going to do? Kill you? No, but it'll help a lot, and it'll keep all this stuff going. So patreon.com/NickDShow. Donate now. Check out my podcast, the Nick D Podcast, which is from the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Check out radiomisfits.com. It's free every Tuesday and Friday, new episodes. And the YouTube channel here, scroll down. There's like 150-some videos here that date back like 8 months. So check them all out and all that cool stuff. And I like to review movies, which I do on a regular basis, and I'm going to do that right now. And I figured I'd do 2 for 1. 2 for 1. I don't know what the fuck that means, but 2 for 1. The reason I'm clumping them together is because they both are opening the same weekend, the July 15, 2022 weekend. They both open on the same day, and they're both based on books that people love. They're both best-selling books, one written in 1958, one written in 2018, but both big-time sellers that have huge fans, that have rabid, very, very passionate fans. And they're both out. They both come out on Friday. And they both center, the characters are both female-driven. It's a female-driven stories, both of them. And the main characters are both women, and women of a different background, and women of a different age, and and of a different time. So I think it's kind of interesting that they both come out the same day. These are best-selling books that have huge fans, and the movies are opening on the same day, and they're kind of a completely different fan base. And so I figured I'd review them together right here. And they are called Where the Crawdads Sing and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. These are the two books into movies, and these are the two movies that open up. Let me start with the bad one first. The bad one is Where the Crawdads Sing, based on a hugely popular book by Delia Owens. Again, it was published in 2018 and has sold millions and millions of copies. I've never read. Let me just preface this by saying that I've not read either of these books. I have only seen the 2 films. So I've not read either of the 2 books, so I don't know the books. I don't know whether they are faithful to the book. I can't speak to whether they represent the book, perfectly or not. I have only seen the movies. I have not read the book. So starting with Where the Crawdads Sing. Reese Witherspoon is a big fan of the book, and she obviously is a big-time actress, a big Hollywood hotshot, and has a production company of her own, and she's produced a lot of very successful movies and HBO shows and things like that. And so she took it upon herself to buy the rights to this book, get a screenplay written, and get the movie made. So it's from her production company, and Reese Witherspoon is the big producer, and she's responsible for having this movie made. And if you have not heard of the book, I know a lot of people have, it starts in 1969, and it is about this legendary local sort of legend girl called the Marsh Girl. And she lives out in the swamps and in the marsh of North Carolina, and there have been all kinds of legends. She lives out there all by herself in this shack, in this little house. And is she a wolf girl? She's very mysterious. How can anybody, a girl like that, survive out in the middle of the swamp and the marsh? And how has she survived all these years? And, of course, you make up local legendary stories. Oh, I've seen her. She's a wolf. She's a ghost. And all these stories rise up about her. And the movie goes back in time and kind of splits its time between 1969. When the movie opens, a guy has fallen off of a tower in the middle of the marsh and fallen to his death. Or he was murdered, and they think he was murdered. Someone killed them, threw him off the top of the tower, and cleaned up their footprints and everything around the tower to make it look like it was an accident. And they think the Marsh Girl did it, this girl named Kaya Clark. And so she is played by Daisy Edgar Jones in the 1969 and late 50s era. A younger actress plays her as a baby, as a child. And they put her on trial for murder. They think that she killed this guy because she knew him. and they had some sort of a relationship, and that was a mystery. But they're convinced that the Marsh girl murdered this guy, threw him off the tower, and killed him. So they put her up on trial for murder in the local courthouse. And her defense attorney is a local in town, played by David Strathairn. And the movie cuts between the courtroom drama of her being up on trial for murder with Strathairn defending her, and the witnesses coming in from the town and around and the locals, and them defending the Marsh girl or trying to put the Marsh girl in jail for murder. And it flashes back to her childhood, where she had a very abusive alcoholic father played by Garrett Dillahunt, and brothers and sisters who, because of the abuse, left home. So the mother left home, all the brothers and sisters, everybody left home. They all left. They couldn't stand the alcoholic abuse and the drunk and the horrible stuff that her father was doing. And she was left alone to live with her alcoholic, abusive father by herself in the swamp/marsh. And then he dies. And then it's up to her to live by herself. She stays in the house belongs to her. She makes friends with an older African-American couple who runs the little grocery store in town, where she goes into town to buy her groceries and then goes back. And she's lived by herself, survived, and lived in the nature, and hunted and fished and hunted for, and did shrimping to make ends meet and to buy the little groceries that she had. And so for all these years, she lived out by herself, survived in the marsh, shrimping and doing what she can to survive all by herself. She meets a local guy. They have a relationship. They fall in love, and he leaves. And then later on, she meets another guy who is a townie, who's very rich, and who is engaged. And they have this illicit sort of affair that nobody really knows about in town. And this is the guy who ends up falling from the tower dead. And so ultimately it is a mystery. Did she really do it? Who killed him? What really happened? And a portrait of survival as this young girl who survives abuse in her childhood, lives by herself, survives in the middle of this swamp/marsh, and makes a life for herself and becomes an incredibly talented artist, drawing nature and leaves and all kinds of beautiful things, and becoming an author, in fact, of reasonably successful books that she, sends to a publisher, and becomes a very successful artist, all on her own. All of this stuff, uneducated, reads on her own, learns to read with the help from the first guy that she meets, and becomes this full, beautiful young lady with the help of this gentleman who she falls in love with, who eventually goes off to the military. But she learns how to read, she learns how to live, she learns how to cope. And it's about this little girl who grows up into a woman, becomes the Marsh girl, the local legend, is put up on trial for murder, and about what happens to her. It's a bad movie. Let me just say that. It's actually a really bad movie. The photography is pretty nice. Directed by a woman named Olivia Newman, who's done lots of TV, one feature, but mostly TV episodes. And the star of the movie, the girl who plays the lead, is Daisy Edgar Jones. Daisy Edgar Jones is known to people in British television and Irish television because she's on this really terrific show called Normal People. She was in the TV show version of War of the Worlds, and she was in that terrible cannibal horror comedy with Sebastian Stan, or whatever the hell his name is, the idiot who played Tommy Lee in the Tommy Lee Pam thing. I can't stand the guy. But anyway, he's in it with her, and it was a cannibal comedy called Fresh. But she's really a newcomer to many of the people who see this movie, to the majority of the American audience, movie-going audience, who will see this movie. And judging by the popularity of the book, millions of people will see this movie. Millions of, I think, particularly a female audience, because the book was very popular with female readers. And people will finally find out who this girl is. And I've known who she was because I'm a big fan of Normal People. I did see Fresh. It was terrible. And she's quite good. And in fact, she's really good in this movie. So Daisy Edgar Jones is her name. She plays the lead, and it's quite an impressive performance. Unfortunately, she's surrounded by a bunch of hacks, by a terrible screenplay. Now, I've not read the book, but if this is faithful to the book, then the book sucks. If this screenplay is actually reminiscent or very faithful to what the book is about, then the book is pretty shitty because the movie is pretty shitty. I didn't care about anything that happened. All of the supporting characters are either one-dimensional stereotypes, like the African-American couple that runs the grocery store, and the alcoholic, abusive dad, and the family members, and especially the townies, or they're just like stereotypical morons, or they look like the guys especially look like they're from LL Bean catalogs, They don't look like, and they're clearly not good actors. And this girl, this Daisy Edgar Jones, is quite good. She's a good actress, and she blows everybody else off the screen except for David Strathairn, who is always good, who plays the defense attorney, and he's good. Didn't care about the mystery, didn't care about what was happening. I thought she was compelling. She's a good actress, unfortunately. I didn't give a shit about anything that happened in the movie. And then, what happens in the movie, and then the big final moment, the last scene in the movie, is not only absurd and ridiculous, but also exactly what I predicted. Even though it's absurd, ridiculous, completely stupid, I knew that's exactly how the movie was going to end, and I knew that was exactly how the mystery was going to be solved. It's a really bad movie. A really, really bad movie. Doesn't work as a courtroom drama, doesn't work as a character-driven study, doesn't work as a survival movie either in the nature. No good parts, not a good portrait of an unhealthy family, of abuse or anything like that. It's certainly not romantic in any way, because the two guys that she's romantically linked with in the movie are both zeros and terrible actors and one-dimensional characters. It is anchored by a very good performance, I will say that. Daisy Edgar Jones is quite good in this, and obviously this is going to be a big movie produced by Reese Witherspoon, based on a book that sold millions and millions of copies. Lots of people are going to see this movie, and it's great for her. This is going to be a great stepping stone for what I think will be a very good career. Terrific actress, really beautiful, has a very expressive and beautiful face, and she's quite good in the movie that doesn't give her much to do. So, Daisy Edgar Jones is terrific. The movie is not. I've not read the book, and it seems to me that it was a movie that was specifically made. I've not read the book, but it felt to me like it was specifically made for people who had read the book. It seems to be one of those movies that caters only to the people who've read the book. Maybe people who've read the book will like it more than I did. I probably think they will. But it seems to me like when it was over, I was like, you know what? This movie was not made for me. It clearly was not made for me. This movie was made specifically for people who have read and liked the book. So, I didn't read the book. I hated the movie, but if you've read the book and you like the book, this seems to be tailor-made. It's like, here you go. In order to enjoy this stupid movie, you probably have had to read the stupid book. So there you go. Nice lead performance, nothing else. Where the Crawdads Sing, caca. Now, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris is the other one, and this is a book that's based, it's a movie that's based on a book by Paul Gallico, which was written in the 50s. So this took a very, very long time to get to screen, unless I'm not educated enough to realize that maybe this book has been made into a short movie or a movie or a TV show. But as far as I know, it's never been made, and this is a book from 1958, and it's finally been made into a movie. And again, this is a period piece. This one takes place in the 50s, and it starts out in London. It takes place in the 50s in London, and Leslie Manville plays Mrs. Harris, and she is a cleaning woman who has been saving up all her money, trying to make ends meet. Her husband, who she finds out at the beginning of the film, was off in World War II, became a prisoner of war, and then died. And so she's a widow. So she is a widowed cleaning woman who makes a little money to get by and spends her nights with close, friends, a couple of other cleaning women and some people that she knows, and some men and other people that she knows from hanging out at the local pub and being in town. Has no money, tries to scrape by saving up all the little pennies and the money that she makes from her cleaning jobs. Well, one of the people that she cleans a house for is a rich woman who's got a Christian Dior exclusive frock, a dress. And Leslie Manville's character, Mrs. Harris, sees this dress and completely falls in love with it. And it's her dream that if she ever gets enough money, she wants to go to Paris, go to Christian Dior, the house of Christian Dior, and get herself an exclusive dress. That's her dream. As this poor, widowed cleaning woman, this is her dream. And so she wins the lottery. Some other good fortune happens with a horse race, and she starts saving her money and making more money, and she gets some insurance from her deceased husband that she's left a lot of money. So now she's got this nest egg of money, and she decides, screw it. I've been working my ass off all this time, living alone, for all this time. I barely make enough money to go to the pub. Screw it. I'm flying. I've never flown before. I'm flying to Paris. I'm going to the Christian Dior house. I'm going to go to a fashion show, and I'm going to get this dress. I'm going to spend all this hard-earned money on this dream, and I'm going to get this dress. And that's what the movie's about. Leslie Manville plays this character who takes her money, tells her friends, I'm going to be gone for a week, flies out by herself to Paris, goes directly to the Christian Dior house and decides she's going to see a fashion show, pick a dress, and buy one for herself. That's the basic premise of the movie. The supporting actors in it, people like Jason Isaacs and Lambert Wilson, and I haven't seen her on screen in a long time, but Isabelle Huppert is in this movie, and she's wonderful in it. And that's what it's about. It's about this dream that this little woman has, and it's about the conflict between classism, and what it's like to be a working class person from London who doesn't know anything about rich people, the way you're supposed to behave, doesn't know anything about high fashion other than it speaks to her and it's beautiful, but she doesn't know how you're supposed to act when you're at a fashion show. She doesn't know how you're supposed to act among the ritzy clientele. And she makes friends and affects the lives of people. A model and a writer kind of fall in love, and she helps that relationship along while she's in Paris. And she ends up staying in Paris a little bit longer in order to get the dress designed for her, this Christian Dior dress. And she meets Christian Dior and the designers and the people who sew the dresses and make the dresses. And she starts to fall in love with the world of Paris, with the world of fashion, and she was once this little peon cleaning lady who is now in the glitterati of Paris, hanging out with Christian Dior and the people in the fashion world. It's a lovely, lovely movie with wonderful characters. The complete opposite of the Crawdad movie, where like your main character is only interesting in the Crawdad movie and everybody else is one-dimensional and stupid. In this movie, everybody has wonderful moments filled with terrific actors. The little romance between the young people that she coaxes along is really lovely. And it is anchored by an exquisite performance by Leslie Manville. Leslie Manville, in the title role as Mrs. Harris, is wonderful. Leslie Manville is she's an international treasure as far as I'm concerned. British actress, mostly has worked in British films for many, many, many years. She's popped up in some American and Hollywood movies as well. She's worked a lot with the great Mike Leigh. She's in a bunch of like Leigh movies. She's in like Topsy Turvy and Secrets and Lies and Another Year and Vera Drake. She's done a lot of work with Mike Leigh, worked a lot on British television and British movies, and has worked in some American films as well. And it is just an exquisitely beautiful, wonderful, just beautiful performance that makes you feel happy, that brings you tears to your eyes. This is a great showcase for Leslie Manville, and I think she's going to get, and I hope she gets an Oscar nomination at the end of the year. I really hope they push for it because she deserves it. She's an actress who's been working for years and years and years, and this is like the role for her. I mean, it's all about her. She's in almost every frame of the movie. She dominates it. Her character is three-dimensional and lovely. You care about her. You love her. You root for her. She makes you laugh. She makes you feel good. She makes you cry. It is a remarkable showcase of a performance for Leslie Manville, a performance that should earn her an Academy Award nomination, if not a win. So, everything around her too. The story is interesting. How they handle classism and how they handle the time period in the 50s in London and in Paris, and the difference between working class and the rich and how they get along. And it's about friendship and love. It's about feeling remorse, over the death of a husband and over the death of family members, and dealing with those feelings of sadness and happiness and joy, and just like wanting something and getting what you want. Saving up all that money for something that you've dreamed about. And that's what this movie's about. It's about achieving your dreams. It's about having great relationships despite the fact that you're an outcast in many situations. And it's a movie that makes you feel fucking good. I felt great while watching this movie. And it is all anchored, again, by a remarkable performance by Leslie Manville. I will say this, though. I was kind of hoping that Daniel Day-Lewis would just kind of show up in the background, as Reynolds Woodcock from the Phantom Thread, because Leslie Manville played Cyril, his sister, in Phantom Thread, the Paul Thomas Anderson masterpiece from a few years ago, where Daniel Day-Lewis in 50s London played a fashion designer and a dressmaker, and Leslie Manville played his sister in it, and she was incredible in it. And this movie takes place around that time period, and it's about the same kind of thing, dressmaking and designing and stuff. And I was just kind of hoping, just off the offshoot, that maybe like Daniel Day-Lewis would just kind of walk by in the background and just kind of be Woodcock, Mr. Woodcock, the designer, have him walk through That would have been fantastic, and it would have been a nice tip of the hat to the same kind of world that Phantom Thread took place, that this movie takes place. But of course, it didn't happen. So anyway, all right. So 2 bestsellers, 2 novels that are beloved by the readers. One is terrific and one is terrible. The good one is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. In fact, it's a terrific movie with an Oscar-worthy central performance by Leslie Manville. And the other is Where the Crawdads Sing, which is a really shitty movie, but anchored by another good performance. And this one by Daisy Edgar Jones. So 2 good performances in the lead characters of these movies, but one terrible movie and one really good movie. So there you go. 2 bestsellers, 2 big movies opening up. One is good, one is bad. That's my opinion. Again, I didn't read either of the books, so I'm just judging them from the movies that I've seen. But kind of an interesting counter-programming to the big, Marvel movies that come out and the big animated stuff that comes out in the summer. Here's a couple of, smaller sort of adult movies based on novels that have nothing to do with special effects or CGI or any of that shit. So it's interesting. One good, one bad. That's my opinion. So anyway, check them out if you want to see them, and read!